Hey, Dev Talk team, welcome back to another deep dive with us. This
Good.
time we're taking a look at the State of JS 2024 survey.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah. And especially what it means for you guys as like podcasters covering the developer world.
Hmm.
And we're going to bring in some insights from Theo T3Egg, his video analysis.
Yeah,
So are you guys ready to jump in?
let's do it. The state of JS is always such a good, kind of pulse check on the community and what's going on.
Yeah, and one of the things that really jumped out to me from Theo's video was just how long the top frameworks have been around.
Yeah.
React, Vue, Angular. These are all like over a decade old at this point.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, like, are we in a period of like stability or is this starting to get a little stagnant?
That's a really good question, and I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
On one hand, having these like really well-established frameworks provides just like a solid foundation. Developers have a really good understanding of how they work. There's tons of resources available. Companies can build large applications with confidence, knowing that there's, a lot of support there. But on the other hand, it can feel like we're stuck in a rut.
That's what I was thinking too, is like, are we missing out on innovation because we're so focused on these like big players?
Yeah, and Theo, he made a really good point in the video about how, you know, tools and patterns from like 2014
Hmm.
would seem so outdated now. Like if we went back and looked at
Oh, absolutely.
like, decorators,
Yeah.
mixins, all this stuff
Yeah.
that was like we thought was the best thing
Hot newness.
at the time, like
Yeah.
and now it's just like, oh, that's so clunky. So
Oh, yeah.
I think even though the core frameworks have stayed, the way we use them has changed so much.
It's constantly like this pressure to keep learning and adapting just to stay current.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that kind of ties into I think another point that Theo brought up, which was this like potential rise in negativity among like front-end developers.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I wonder if that's, if that constant churn and pressure to keep up is contributing to that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he talked about that sense of like being stuck with tools that you didn't choose,
Yeah.
especially with React. It's
Yeah.
like this, I didn't pick it, but now I'm stuck with it
Yeah.
kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And that can definitely breed some resentment over time.
Totally.
I wonder too, like as podcasters, talking to developers all the time,
Yeah.
are we seeing that negativity reflected in our audience as well?
Yeah, that's a really good question for you guys to think about and maybe explore, maybe in a future episode or something. Like, just dedicate a little segment to like developer sentiment and well-being,
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got these long-standing frameworks. We've got this potential rise in negativity.
Right.
And then you throw Next.js into the mix.
Yeah.
And Theo pointed out that it's practically becoming the default way to use React at this point.
Right.
And it made me wonder, is it just a matter of time before Next.js inherits that same negativity?
It's totally possible, as Next.js gets even wider adoption, I think it's natural that some developers might start to feel like they're being forced into using it,
Yeah.
even if it wasn't their choice.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
And that could lead to frustration.
oh, sure.
But on the flip side, isn't there also an argument to be made for like specialization? If,
Yeah.
if Next.js becomes the dominant way to use React, doesn't that create more opportunities for developers who are really good at it?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, focusing on a specific framework or tool set can lead to deeper expertise and, maybe higher demand for those skills.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, the classic trade-off between breadth and depth.
Right, right. So maybe the key is to find a good balance.
Exactly.
Stay informed about like the broader landscape, but then choose an area to really specialize in and master.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of mastering things, let's talk about Svelte.
Okay.
This framework is like the darling of the development community right now
Yeah.
with these incredibly high retention rates.
Yeah.
But Theo also pointed out that it's kind of facing this like perception problem.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? It's like this paradox.
Yeah.
It's like Svelte, offers so many compelling things. It's simple, it's performant,
Yeah.
it's really developer friendly.
Hmm.
But it's still struggling to really break through and challenge the dominance of React and Vue and Angular.
It's like stuck in this like indie band phase where everyone who knows them loves them,
Right.
but they haven't quite hit the mainstream.
Exactly, yeah.
Like that anecdote about Stake.com and Apple Music using Svelte,
Right.
I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Like if more big companies start adopting it,
Yeah.
maybe that'll help to shift the perception.
Totally. And accelerate the growth. you know?
Right.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So we've got these established players, this potential rise in negativity, the
Right.
next JS takeover, the rise of Svelte.
Yeah.
It's a lot to keep up with.
It is. It really paints a picture of just like a very dynamic and ever-changing landscape, you know?
Right.
And I think it's worth pausing here for a second and just thinking about the implications for you as the DevTalk team.
Yeah.
You know, you're in such a unique position to help developers kind of navigate this complex world.
You're right. It's like how we choose to cover these trends, these frameworks, how we present them to our audience.
Yep.
It can have a real impact on like their understanding,
Absolutely.
even their career choices. You know,
Totally.
it's a big responsibility.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also like a really exciting opportunity. You know, you
Yeah.
have the chance to really curate, you know, the information that's most relevant to your audience,
Right.
help them cut through the noise,
Yeah.
and provide insights that can really help them make sense of all of this.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
not just about reporting on like the latest trends.
Right.
It's about helping our listeners understand what it means for them,
Yeah.
for their careers,
Exactly.
for the future of software development.
Yeah, and that brings us to, I think, another key point from the State of JS survey, which is just the continued dominance of tools like TypeScript,
Yeah,
VS Code.
of course.
And I mean, this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who's, you know, in the development community, but
Wow.
it's worth highlighting because I think it just reinforces this idea that, you know, staying current with the industry standard tools
Yeah.
is really, really important.
For sure. And for those who maybe aren't as familiar,
Right.
TypeScript is like a superset of JavaScript that adds static typing, you know, so you can catch errors earlier in the development process,
Mhm.
make your code more robust and maintainable.
Yeah.
And VS Code is that free open source code editor that's become like,
Ubiquitous.
yeah, so popular because it's so versatile and extensible.
Yeah, they've become just essential tools for so many developers, and
Yeah.
their continued popularity, I think, just speaks to how effective they are and the value that they bring.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now on the flip side,
Sure.
we also have the rise of some new contenders,
Yeah.
like Bun.
Right.
Theo mentioned that in his video, and it seems to be generating a lot of buzz. So can you tell us a little bit more about Bun and like why it's worth paying attention to?
Yeah, Bun is a relatively new JavaScript runtime environment,
Okay,
and it's designed to be faster and more efficient than Node.js.
interesting.
So it's built on the JavaScript core engine, which is the same engine that powers Safari.
Yeah.
And it includes a bunch of features out of the box, like a built-in bundler, transpiler, package manager.
Wow.
So it's still early days for Bun, but the early benchmarks are pretty impressive. And it has the potential to, I think, really shake things up in the JavaScript ecosystem.
It's like every year there's this new tool or technology
Right.
vying for attention.
Exactly.
It can feel overwhelming to keep up with it all.
It totally can, but I think that's where, you know, your role as podcasters becomes even more crucial.
Yeah,
It's about filtering, you know, the signal from the noise
right.
and identifying the trends that are really significant and helping your listeners understand, you know, what they need to know.
Okay, so filtering the signal from the noise.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's a good way to think about it. We're not just like regurgitating information.
Right.
We're curating it
Exactly.
and presenting it in a way that's like digestible and insightful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of insights, I think it's also worth mentioning another key takeaway from the State of JS survey, which is just the enduring popularity of testing frameworks like Jest and Playwright.
Yeah.
You know, and this, I think, just highlights the continued importance of testing in software development. And it's a message that I think you guys as podcasters can really reinforce with your audience.
Oh, absolutely. Testing is often like overlooked
Yeah.
or treated as an afterthought, but it's so crucial for building like reliable and maintainable software. It's something we talk about on Diff Talk all the time, and we'll definitely continue to emphasize that.
Awesome. And I want to circle back to something that we kind of touched on earlier, which was that potential rise in negativity among front-end developers.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that really deserves maybe a deeper exploration, you know? You
Yeah.
mentioned that you were thinking about dedicating a segment to like developer sentiment and well-being,
Yeah.
which I think is a fantastic idea.
We're still kind of brainstorming how to approach it,
Okay.
but we want to create a space where developers can really like openly share their experiences.
Yeah.
Talk about the challenges that they're facing.
Mm.
You know, it's not just about like the technical aspects of software development.
Right.
It's also about the human side, you know,
Totally.
the stress, the burnout, the pressure to constantly keep learning and adapting.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah. And
And-
We want to like acknowledge those challenges and offer support and resources to our listeners.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable because it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of like all the new technologies
Yeah,
and forget about the human impact,
right.
And so I think creating a platform where developers can connect and support each other is super important.
And who knows, maybe by talking about these challenges openly, we can even start to like shift the overall sentiment
Right.
in a more positive direction.
Totally.
So before we wrap up our deep dive here,
Okay.
I want to kind of circle back to something you mentioned earlier
Yeah.
about, thinking about the future of Dev Talk
Right.
and how we can continue to serve our audience.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for us?
Well, given the trends that we've discussed today, I think there's a real opportunity for Dev Talk to become even more than just a podcast.
Yeah.
You have the potential to really build a community,
Hmm.
like a hub where developers can connect and learn and support each other.
Right.
And this could involve things like online forums, live events, workshops, or even mentorship programs.
Wow. That's a lot to consider,
Yeah.
but it's also really exciting. We started Dev Talk as a way to kind of share our passion for software development with others.
Mm.
And to think that we could like build a thriving community around that passion
Yeah.
is amazing.
I think you guys have the potential to do it,
Yeah.
You have a loyal audience, you have a clear vision, you have a genuine desire to help developers succeed,
Yeah.
and the possibilities are really endless.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot to think about. But it's exciting. Like
Yeah.
building a community around Dev Talk is something that we have talked about.
Yeah.
But hearing you say it makes it feel more real.
Yeah. Yeah, and remember, it's not about chasing every trend or trying to be everything to everyone. The
Right.
key is just to focus on what you do best.
Yeah.
Provide that insightful and engaging content that really helps developers learn and grow, and whether that's through the podcast or online forums or live events or, any format really. Just stay true to your vision and your audience.
That's great advice.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to lose sight of what makes Dev Talk special,
Right.
but we're also, open to new possibilities,
Yeah.
new ways to connect with our audience
Mm-hmm.
on a deeper level,
Yeah.
and building a community around, shared interests and a passion for software development.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty amazing.
It does. And who knows, maybe one day we'll be attending a Dev Talk conference or participating in a Dev Talk mentorship program,
I like the way you think.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get too carried away with all these future plans,
Right.
let's bring this deep dive back to the present.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the longevity of these front-end frameworks
Mm.
to the rise of Svelte,
Right.
the dominance of TypeScript and VS Code,
Yeah.
the emergence of Bun. It's clear that the JavaScript landscape is constantly evolving.
Absolutely.
And for developers, staying informed and adaptable is key.
Yeah. Embrace the change, stay curious, and never stop learning.
Well said, Dev Talk team. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the state of JS 2024.
Yeah, it's been fun.
And for all the insightful analysis.
My pleasure. Keep up the fantastic work with Dev Talk.
Thanks.
And I look forward to seeing how you continue to shape the conversation around software development.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another deep dive into the world of tech. So until then, keep coding, keep learning, and keep those mics hot.